Hey everybody. So my name's JP. I am one of the mentors for the Udacity Full Stack Nano Degree program, and today we're just going to go through a webinar introducing some of the first few topics that you're going to be going through and need to know about in order to complete the Full Stack Nano Degree. So yeah, I'll just get into it, and then please just ask questions if you have, either on Slack or on the live Google Live Hangouts. I think you can basically comment on here. I'm pretty certain. Chat, basically just chat. If you have any questions, just feel free to interrupt me. I'll keep Slack open over here, and I've got the chat over here as well. So just to reiterate, just interrupt me at any time. Basically, in this webinar, I just want to basically get across three main things, and that's to let all of these students make sure that let you all know, make sure you're aware of the different courses offered by Udacity that go through these three concepts. Sorry, just the three concepts are the shell, so working with the shell, Git, and GitHub. So we're going to go through the three concepts, explain them, how and why they're useful, and how to use them. So then the three main things to get across to you guys would be just make sure you're all aware of the different courses that Udacity has that cover these topics. Then we're going to go through the shell, I'll give a conceptual overview, and then go through Git and GitHub, what they both are and how they're useful, and then go through some of the most common workflows for using GitHub. So before we do that, maybe one thing is just to clarify which projects this will be useful for. I think that's something that's going to be standard in each of these webinars, explaining exactly what, where and how the bodies of knowledge will be applicable for the different projects in the nano degree. But this is pretty broad for this particular webinar. And what I mean is that the shell is going to be used all the time. Basically live in the shell as a full stack web developer. So you just have to know the shell, and it'll just, you'll wonder how you ever worked without it once you're using it. I'm sure most of you are already using it, and will probably agree with me on that. So there's no particular project. Project one, it'll be useful for, but it will be useful for every single project, and that's both. That's all three. That's shell, that's the shell, that's Git, or any other version control, and then GitHub, which is just a framework, or sorry, apologies. GitHub is basically just what allow where your repositories can be stored. So it's just really a service. So the projects that will be used for is all of them. So I'm just checking. No questions yet. Nope, no, it's like, okay, so we'll just go through the concepts quickly. So the shell, essentially the shell is just an alternative way to working with your desktop as compared to the graphical user interface that most non-technical people use on their computer. So yeah, just it's a program for interacting, and it just makes everything a whole lot faster. It also makes things a whole lot more efficient. It's also far more capable than the normal way of interacting with a mouse or point and click with your computer. So it's quicker for nearly every single task. Maybe cut and paste or copying and pasting a file, or 100 files might be almost the same time, or even slightly faster using your mouse and the GUI graphical user interface. But for nearly everything else, it's going to be faster to carry out operations with the shell. So the shell is essentially just a console that you interact with by typing. You type commands into it, and based on those commands, the computer carries out certain actions. And yeah, in the beginning, it might be a bit tedious because you don't know the commands, the most common commands off by heart. I think most people don't really memorize them. It's just after using some of them so many times, you start to really get used to using them. You start memorizing them, and you really just start working a whole lot faster. I mentioned it being more efficient. A good example of it being more efficient is for batch processes. Imagine you had to sort a whole bunch of files or rename, like 10,000 files, or order them by something arbitrary like the alphabetically after by the last word, or if you were going to order them, if it was like a set of songs, and you want to order them by the duration of each song. These are just arbitrary examples, but there's so many different batch processes that can be done really, really efficiently. I mean, you can do it uh, with your GUI. Go into each of the files, right-click, change the name of the file, and I've done that in the past. So it's just ridiculously slow compared to using the shell. In terms of it being more capable, there's just so many more things you can do with the shell. So you can run programs. So for example, once you're in a shell, you would, say for example, Python, you'd type Python and it would open a Python interpreter and you actually can write little programs. I'll show you now how, and then there's just so many more things you can do. So running programs, interacting with servers, setting up environments. So basically, an environment is where you would set up your whatever software you're building to run, and you want that to be pretty standardized. So it mustn't be a product of where you happen to be working, and if it has to be used by many people, it has to operate exactly the same for every single person. So the way to get around this problem, because everybody has different environments. When what I mean is they might be using a Windows laptop, they might be working on a MacBook or on some flavor of Linux, but the program still has to run exactly the same. And so the way that this is done is by setting up a virtual environment. So that's super simple with the shell. Okay, so I said I was going to show you, so let me quickly just show you. See if I can share my screen. I'm not sure where I am here. Let's see. Share the screen for a second, just to show you what so okay, so I think that is sharing my screen. So basically, this is an example of a shell. This is Bash. So if you're on Windows, this is probably the best thing you can use. Windows has command prompt. So if you it has command prompt where you can navigate your computer file system, but we're not going to use that. Bash is far more common. It's based on Linux, which is how most virtual environments are set up. And yeah, it's the most common. If you're on a Mac, you'll use Terminal, which is also Linux based. So that's perfectly fine. So I'm not really teaching you how to use the shell. I'm just showing you what it looks like and say some basic things like how to move around. So for example, if I type print working directory, it'll show you exactly the C drive, the users. My name is Jean Paul, so that's the user that I'm set up as. Documents, and then I'm working on application news platform. And then you can say CD, which is to change directories. And if you push two dots, you go into the parent directory. So you can see and then if I do that again, just to show you, CD again, so I'm going up again another level to another parent directory. So I was in C, users, Jean, P, documents, news platform, live news platform. And now I've pressed CD dot dot twice, CD space dot dot twice. I've changed directory twice. So in theory, I should now be, if I print working directory, I should be here in this news platform. That might be confusing. Sorry, I just did this without thinking, as I've got news platform twice. So what I'll do is I'll change directory again and go into my documents folder. So if I go again, CD, like that, and then I print working directory, well, you can see it already straight over here. You can see it says documents there, you can see it says news platform there, you can see it says live. So if I print working directory anyway, then you can see on there, which is 3 levels up from where I was over here, and we had changed the directory 3 times. So anyway, so that would be this. What I'm using here is called bash, which is the most common. Okay, I will stop sharing the screen now. Yeah, okay, so actually, apologies, I'll go back to sharing the screen and just show you some of the 2 of the courses that Udacity have that are very useful for learning to work with the shell. So first is the shell is going to probably end up being some flavor of Linux. That's the most recommended. So the Linux command line basics is a great course to go through. It's pretty short. I think it's got it here. It takes you a week. So I recommend just going and doing this course. It's free. And I'll just add it to the Hangouts chat here, the link to it. And I'm sure you can find it. The next one is the shell workshop. So the course is called, sorry, I won't let it play. That's Carl Kruger, probably my favorite lecturer at Udacity. Yeah, so UD206, that's the name of the course. I'll also add that to this chat. So if I go over here. So those are 2 courses that I recommend you guys do. You can probably do them. You put the videos on 2-speed and you can go through them, super quick. I don't know. I guess everyone has different ways of doing it. I go through it quite quickly, practice a bit, and then I go and redo the course again. That seems to work for me. Okay, great. So let us get back to this. Stop screen sharing. So yeah, hopefully that just gives a conceptual overview of what the shell is. So it's basically where you'll be working, no matter what you're doing. Sorry, this maybe doing this in quite a disjointed fashion, but just thinking of things to show you every now and then. So if you look here, so just to show you what you can do. So that in the shell, if you were going to run programs, if you were to say type Python, take you into a Python interpreter, and so you could just run Python command there. So if you say print, hi there everybody. So yeah, that's another thing you can do immediately, straight from terminal, which is kind of hard to do if you're just using the normal desktop GUI. So this is great if you, yeah. Well, you see as you work as a developer, you're constantly moving files, um, running programs to check that they work, checking for errors, running tests, setting up environments, and it all just becomes incredibly um, useful to do inside a shell, and that's the point of the shell. So yeah, hopefully that's a very basic overview. And yeah, I suggest really getting super comfortable doing nearly everything you can in the shell. As soon as it becomes second nature, the rest of the nano degree will become a whole lot easier. Now, I think that I'm going to, and most people say that for quite a few of these concepts. So um, the shell is important, and just as important is a version control. So Git is a version control system, and GitHub is a service that provides the version control software. So um, if we look at Git, right, it basically allows you to, so say for example, if you were working on a file, right, a Python file, and you wanted to make changes to it, you you may make a whole bunch of changes and then realize that those changes were based on an assumption that is no longer valid, and then you have to go back. So say people that work in other industries that don't understand version control, they've always got 65 versions of a Word document, for example. Whereas with Git, you always only have one version, but you have a history of all the different snapshots of the document or set of documents you're working with over a period of time, and you can always revert backwards. So, for example, if you had made all of these changes and you realize that they no longer matter, you can just bring up a history of all the changes you've made, and from there you can then go and revert, I guess is the way, go back to an earlier version and carry on working from there. So that's just something that makes version controls invaluable. I find it impossible to work without version control now. I mean, it allows you to try new stuff because you're super comfortable that if you do make a mistake, you don't break everything. You just go back to before you started with whatever set of things you didn't that broke what you were doing. So it's fantastic just for anything you're doing on your own. And then it's also fantastic when you're working with a team. So I was saying like as I worked as an engineer, but I'm sure it's the same for I don't know countless different industries. If they had version control, they wouldn't need hundreds of versions of a Word document or PDF. Um, and they wouldn't have to be so creative with their naming conventions for all of these documents. So it's like Word documents, say the name is a JP's presentation to the executives Friday 27th, and then someone else does their changes, then they'll have that name, JP's document or presentation, blah blah blah. Edit 1, 3 p.m. by Billy. And so you end up, I don't know, man. I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about. You just have this ridiculous amount of documents, and you're never 100% sure which is the right one, especially if people have different ideas and everyone's got a different version. And so, yeah, Git and GitHub. There are others like Bitbucket. I think it's owned by Atlassian, an Australian company. But yeah, so I'm not biased towards GitHub and Git, but they were just the ones that I learned, and Udacity has some two great courses on using them. So yeah, we can just go with them. But you may find a different version control system for more suitable, or you just may like it. I only use GitHub because it's what I learned, and I don't really mind. I don't really care which one. Use as it does. So to recap, so far it's just great for working on documents on your own. It's also fantastic for collaborating on with whether it's one person working on it or a team of 40 different people. Another great feature, great features, the ability to branch, and that what that means is like, say you have a document, like a good example which is used in the actual course by Udacity is say a story. So you carry on with perhaps you've got a plot and you're writing out the plot, and then you think, okay, well maybe we could change, the plot twist and say something else. But then you might have a different idea as well, and say that there's a different type of plot twist and something else happens. So now you may have three different alternative directions that your single story has taken, and essentially, it's really cool because then you can experiment and try each or three. You don't have to build one, cancel it, and then build another one, another version of the story, and start from scratch and do it again. You can just go branch off with your different ideas. Even the word branch to me is very intuitive. It explains exactly like what you're doing. You're branching off with a different idea. Say more specifically to software, you might have a branch where you're trying to add a feature in a certain way. But you're not really sure if it will apply to the software that you're building. So, for example, if you're trying to think of one on the fly, but basically say if you wanted a layout where you had, say, a contact form and a map and a actual email address, and you wanted a page like that on your, let's say, on your website, and alternatively you just had one button that said contact, and you just had a form, and you wanted to check how the two different versions work. You could just create which one looks the best or feels the best for the specific style of your site. Then you would create a branch, and you don't have to break the current setup, the current page that you have. You can just have a branch and look at it and see how it looks in a different looks. You can see how the alternative looks, and then often you might add a feature, but you're not sure if it really works with if it's compatible with it. That's another useful application of a branch. And what's pretty cool is that you can there's two different commands which help bring the branch or the stuff you're working on. Once you're confident that it is congruent with your complete product, you can either merge it or you can rebase. I won't go into rebasing, but if anyone has any specific questions, I'll explain it in detail. But it's far more useful to learn about it once you have comfortable using the basics of Git and GitHub. Okay, so yeah, it's basically great for building anything, I think. Even literally writing a Word document. Git and GitHub are fantastic. So Git is the software, the version control software, and GitHub is just where you store your software. So I'll just basically give you an example of GitHub of Git of a version control system. So let me just share my screen again. Let's see. So share the screen, and let's see. We're going to exit our Python interpreter, and let's just make a directory called super temporary. Okay. So then we'll change directory into super temporary. Basically, when you start typing commands using your shell, it's pretty intuitive, and once you've typed 2 or 3 of the letters, you press tab and it'll do tab completion, which is super cool. So now you can see if I type print working directory that we're in our new directory. Now I'm going to initialize this as a Git repository. So basically, I think what I should do is just purchase the command. Oh, let me first initialize the Git init. I initialized a Git repository, and now you can see it's got this extra piece of information, and that basically shows that I'm on the master branch of this Git repository. So let me just make a file in here. Touch word doc dot txt. Okay. And then text is the text editor I use, which is basically just where you write all your code. So this is a shortcut to open up. And there we go. That's it. Let's close that. So here's our Word document. So say if we just start typing, hi there, here is a new document that we will build version control, right, Control S, save it. And then basically, I don't expect you to remember this. Well, maybe you will. It took me a while to, but I'm just showing you basically what actually goes on when you use version control software. So I'm in the shell, and by typing git init, I've initialized the git repository, which means now that the git software, which I had installed previously, which you'll be able to do when you look at the when you go through the Git and GitHub courses, they'll show you how to do this. But basically now it's installed, and so it's tracking all the changes. And the way it tracks the changes is first you add it to the staging area. The staging area is just where you put all of the files that you want to take a snapshot of. So when I say snapshot, basically, so if before you share it with other people, or before you make further changes, the snapshot is all the points in the creation of a document or set of documents that that you want to be able to roll back to. So let's say git add. We've only got one document, but if we say git add -- all, it's added it. You can see with the plus sign over here that it's added it. And then you can also check by saying what is the status. And you say that there's no commits, but we have a new file. Okay. And so if I say git commit, so now you're actually committing, which means that you've created a snapshot. And we also generally give a message, and we'll just say it's a feature, and we say started new document. And now one file has changed. And now if I go to git log, you can see I've got one snapshot. I'm the author, it's got now, and it's got the date, etc. So I'm sorry if this doesn't make too much sense. I don't want to waste your time by trying to teach the same content that Udacity does. I'm just trying to give you a basic introduction and idea of what exactly the version control software is and why it's so fantastic. And basically, if we made more changes to the document, so say we went back here and we said, now we are to add this text document. Yes, and we go back to our version control software, and we say status. We can see that our Word document has been modified. Again, we can take another snapshot. So if we say git add, or we're adding all the files, and we say git commit -m. The -m means that we're adding the commit message. And so again, add more text to the document, and then so we've made two changes. So if we go to the git log, there should be two snapshots. Git log, and there they are. Okay. So hopefully you have a very basic understanding of what GitHub is and or what Git is. And then I think lastly, it may be useful to just show you exactly. It may be useful to show you GitHub itself, where you host all of your repositories. But before, well, yeah, actually, I'll just do that right now. So if I share the screen again, sorry guys, share the screen, share, and we go here to GitHub. It's going to go to our page, and then these are just all the projects that I've worked on. So if we go to the repositories, basically, this is just literally um, where you would keep. So a repository is just a collection of files, or that usually uh, sit together and form a project. Um, and yeah, basically you could just make your own project. You press this plus over here, and you can create a new repository. You can explore all the repositories that maybe are public. It's basically if someone puts up their code for other people to see and use and contribute to. So a lot of open source stuff is sitting on GitHub for you to go through. But for example, here are the two files in this repository. Right? It's only got one commit. It's only got one branch, so this is very basic. I haven't done much with it. But if you go to the history, that's the same as when I typed git log. You can see the snapshots. So there was only one. But basically, hopefully, what you can see here by me, what I'm really just showing you is that GitHub is just a place to store all of your version control. No, it is a place to store all of your projects that incorporates version control software. So it allows you to work really well and check all the changes that have occurred over time. So yeah, basically that's what it is. It's fantastic for collaborating. So for example, let me see if I can go to something and show you how you would. Well, let's explore. Maybe this is a good way to do it. So if we go explore, we can see these are a whole bunch of public repositories. I'm just gonna maybe what we can do is we can type in Python and see the algorithms. So I was brushing up on my data structures and algorithms, so this might be useful to me. Basically, this shows you there's 941 commits, so there's 941 different snapshots for this project. Now you can copy it. You can copy all of the code in here and mess around with it yourself, and you do that by cloning or downloading the software. I mean, the files. And if you wanted to make changes and let everybody see the changes that you have made, then that's when you'd work with branches and you would create pull requests. So the last thing I'd just say is that all of this is covered in quite good detail in these two courses, the UD 775 and UD 123. So yeah, these are both Git and GitHub courses that Udacity offers. So I highly recommend you guys go and take a look or do them. So I am just actually going to copy them and add them to this this Hangout, just so you have them in the chat. Copy. Next. And the last one is this one here, UD123. Cool. So I hope this has just given you an overview of three really important concepts. Two of them are super related. That's Git and GitHub. Essentially just version control software, and then a great place, which is GitHub, to store all of the projects you're working on and be able to manage them well. And that's just fantastic for if you're working with somebody or working on a large team or by yourself. It's just fantastic. You can see I had quite a few repositories on there. I just find it useful to have them there. I can go at a later date and I can just see all of the changes, how the projects progressed, how far they got. A few of them I've collaborated with other people, so you can see what each person did, who had merge requests, the different branches that people had and used. Yeah, so that's GitHub and Git together, and then the shell. It's like yeah, you can't. It's almost like coding if you don't have a computer. Maybe it's not that extreme, but it's just about. Yeah, you really just need to understand the shell and basically work in it. that's also got text editors. So like I said, I use Sublime Text. A lot of people use VS Code, and another one would be Atom. But there's also Vim, which is will sit in your shell. Don't think it sits in the shell, but the shell calls it. So that's a great text editor that a lot of people use. There are quite a few others as well. But basically, hopefully you realize that you'll be spending hours upon hours upon hours in the shell. So the sooner you get comfortable with it, the better. And yeah, Udacity has great resources on it. So yeah, I don't see any questions, but hopefully this has been hopefully at the very least gives you an overview of those three tools, and yeah, you can find the links. Of course, you could just go into Udacity and search for the courses yourself, but there's the four direct links to some resources from Udacity, courses specifically on the shell and version control. Cool, guys. After this, I'll still be on Slack for half an hour for the weekly AMA. So just send your questions, and then if you watch this at a later date and you have any questions, just message me on Slack. And then lastly, yeah, it's not obviously compulsory, but you're more than welcome to set up the weekly one-on-ones where we can go through your study plan, look at any of the problems that you guys might now be having, and yeah, just make sure that you're able to complete this well and that it's super beneficial to you. So yeah, thanks for watching this. If you have or if you do in the future, and yeah, apologies if it's a bit disjointed. Hopefully, I'll get a bit better at presenting. So if you have any criticism, I'd also welcome it, just so I can get better and be more useful to you guys. Cool. Thanks, and we'll chat again soon. Cheers.